already see some people joining in. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn with Indus. As you might already know, we run these sessions every week, every weekday. Every Monday, I'm trying to bring together all the different elements of the SAP ecosystem together, which actually enable as SAP customers you to drive digital transformation in your organization. One of the things that we do is every Monday, I host an Ask Me Anything. I talk about digital transformation from my perspective. Every Tuesday, I bring in a thought leader, a customer, a CIO, CFO, or an author or a consultant who is an expert on that particular topic. Every Wednesday, I bring in a startup. Every Thursday, I bring in an SAP expert. And every Friday, I bring in an SAP partner who bring to market products that they have developed, which works in either in conjunction with SAP solution or on top of SAP solutions. So in that way, today I'm happy to host Nikhil from Vistex. So he will talk about how his company can actually help you in your digital transformation journey, specifically from a pricing point of view. So Nikhil, can I ask you to introduce yourself and take it away from there?
Sure, Mukesh. Thank you so much for setting it up. My name is Nikhil Rawal. I look after sales and pre-sales for Vistex in India and Middle East. And I'm happy to talk about a few use cases around pricing and how it can help you as an organization to optimize two of your key business drivers, revenue and margin. I'll start by sharing my screen with a short presentation. And along with that, I'll also run through a short demo to enable you on the key function features and how it can be adopted to your business. Right. So I'll start off with a quick introduction of Vistex, who we are and what we do. We are SAP's global software extension partner for over 2 decades, and we're working more than 1,500 customers worldwide. And we are proud to receive multiple awards over the course of years, and that emphasizes our partnership with SAP and how we help customers globally to adopt our solutions and how it adds value to them in their SAP investments and overall frame of things. And as you can see, we are situated worldwide across the regions to support our customers in real time. With that being said, one of the biggest advantage or the USP of our solution is that this is embedded to the core of ERP, which is also called as digital core. In that sense, we can read and leverage all of your existing SAP master data transaction that you have in, let's say, SD, finance, MM, and so on, natively without having to build an interface between Vistex applications and SAP, right? And this in turn highlights that particularly the saying that we are part of SAP as an add-on and can natively read across your modules and can in turn post back to it as required, right? And there are key functions or processes that we enable with the solution. The foremost being pricing and deal management, which we'll cover in detail today. And apart from that, we have solutions around managing your contracts with the customers, vendors, and business partners, rebates, commissions, and incentives, chargeback claims, and a lot of other things around data management. This in turn lowers your TCO because this can be embedded to your SAP architecture or can even run as a sidecar to your SAP deployment. Right? In turn, you can leverage your teams or the skill set that you have for SAP even for Vistex applications. Right? From a solution point of view, our value proposition is to help you optimize two of the key business drivers, as I mentioned. The first of which being revenue, which is directly linked to how we go to market in terms of the prices. And we'll see how we can help you optimize that part of your business process or the KPI. And of course, while you go to market, you would of course have multiple schemes that you operate with your business partners, be it your dealer, distributors, customers, even suppliers or principals. And that's where you would have an expenses which eat up your margins, which are part of your go-to-market strategy, or you might also have commissions to your employees or brokers, which are taken up as an additional cost for your marketing activities, right? And all of these put together impacts your margins, or what we call as income in this slide. And we partner with you, with our customers, to optimize these two key business drivers, right? Let's deep dive into the pricing area, price management piece in detail, to see the set of functions and how this fits your point of view, your way of working in things. Now, when talk about price management as an overall, it typically starts off with a pricing strategy. Most companies operate with a cost plus or a value-based pricing. And this flow diagram specifies that, let's say if you are in a commodity business and you start off with a index as a baseline or as a reference for your prices, right? That can be imported from respective indices if you have subscribed to those. We have work areas to store those on a periodic basis, which can be every day, every week, month, quarter, depending on your subscriptions and requirements. And all of your SAP parameters, be it all of your cost of goods that you have in, let's say, a material management, or even in ledgers if you have, all those can be accumulated and can be made part of your price determination. Most companies use that as a rule for their price build-up, right? At the same time, this can even be compared to your competitor in terms of prices, right? If you have a mechanism to get competitor price, be it via an upload, for example, or an interface, or somebody maintains that manually, all these can be compared with your prices, and decision can be taken based on data instead of having to rely on gut feelings. Apart from that, you would also definitely have additional, let's say, warehousing cost, administrative cost, or logistic cost involved in your sales approach. All those can be either added up or can be maneuvered as a part of your price determination, right? All these put together in terms of all of your pricing components and your own business rules or strategies conclude to a custom or a channel price, which is your list price. On top, you might have additional negotiated discounts to the customers, be it a dealer, be it a B2B customer, or even transfer price between intercompany sales, right? All these can be managed in a single UI in a holistic way, and can be integrated to your SAP processes, for example, SD and MM, right? And this is equally true from a procurement point of view, where you manage all of your purchasing prices along with your vendor discounts and so on. Above that, while you have a price strategy to determine selling price, you'd of course have a mechanism to simulate an impact of any potential change, be it in the current time or an upcoming period, or a potential change in future that might happen, right? You can do a what if analysis and analyze your margins with an impact of that change in a future date, right? This gives you an ability to forecast your revenues in some sense, and as well understand how much leverage you have to, let's say, increase or decrease your prices in terms of the market dynamics. At the same time, once you have visibility of that, this can even be embedded to your organization policies, which can be, let's say, as simple as your price cannot be more than competitor price by 10%, right? That is one example. Or your margin for a specific category cannot fall below 30%. These can be defined as a one-time setup and can be evaluated in every change or every request as a quote, right? All of these can even be linked to approvals. So once and when these policies are violated, or once somebody initiates a price change, this can be sent to approval to respective authorities. And once approved, this can post to SAP as a record, as a price master. At the same time, this can be sent over to your customers or your internal teams, for example, sales and marketing, for them to be aware of that change. And please note that these can be retroactive in nature as well. Your prices are valid for, let's say, entire quarter, and this has to be posted. This is posted on mid of the month. This can even be done for the transaction which are already posted in the last 15 days and can be automatically reconciled. At the same time, once you talk about this problem of doing this calculations on a daily basis, monthly basis, we recommend a pricing journey which enables you to carry out these basic steps or a ladder for you to use that data or a setup to optimize your price for individual customers in a B2B quote manner, or for your tertiary customers or even end consumer in a B2C fashion, right? What we talked about so far is the baseline for you to set up the price administration, where you maintain all of this together, utilize the next generation UI of SAP, which is the Fiori UI and other factors, and even use your data to report things which can help the pricing team manage this effectively. A step forward from that could be also to compare your price for multiple customers who are peer in a specific industry, or two articles or products falling under same category. For example, you can compare their profitability in an actual basis or as a forecast basis, for example, right? And can use all of this data to optimize how you price your products, and be how your customer perceive it in the first place, or how would your volume change if you increase the price by 5 rupees or 10 rupees, for example, right? All these can be embedded to an ML algorithm that we have built specifically for pricing optimization, and can give you recommendations for respective prices, right? In terms of capabilities, the solution offers you to optimally manage, maintain, and even recommend a range of prices with the functions to mass upload, mass import, a change in mass, have it linked to approvals. At the same time, review the recommendations given by the system for respective attributes, can be at a regional level, at a material level, and another factors that you consider for your prices. And also report the data into a dashboard format, which is easy to consume for your management, on how a price change has impacted your overall profitability, your growth in sales, growth in volumes, and so on, in terms of all of these analysis, and even do promotion which are given for a shorter period. Can be an FOC, can be a special price on buying a bundle, and so on and so forth, right? As you mentioned about price retroaction, I'll take an example of last month price. While you might have billed at a provisional price of 100 rupees, and today you make a price change in the system for the month of March, system can automatically go back in time, figure out, let's say from 100 to 90 rupees you have changed it to. It can figure out which all transactions, be it invoices on the sales or purchase side, which is required to undergo the price revision. System can automatically update respective records in SAP, and can carry out differential transactions in finance or via SD or MM modules, right? This can be triggered on demand or can be scheduled as a part of your periodic activity. And as I mentioned, all this can be linked to workflows. So just you can have it defined as per your DOAs, delegation authorities, on who can approve what kind of changes, or based on a condition saying that if overall price change has an impact of 35%, X% on my margins, trigger respective workflows which has 5 approvals. Whereas if the price change is minimal, only require 2 approval steps. All these can be configured as per your approach of doing pricing, right? Let's review an example of the same in system and understand how things actually work out. So I'll go into the respective Fiori UI, which is to help, walk you through an example respective to the price maintenance that we just looked at. Now, all of these are based on rules, access controls, just how you have it for SAP Fiori. You can have it controlled by who can see what kind of workspaces for them, what kind of types for them to work on, and so on and so forth. It is just the way SAP Fiori functions. In that sense, we're integrated to it. Let me review an example of that pricing document. Now, this is where you'll be able to see all of your price components and how we can change that data in a real-time basis, right? So you can, of course, have it defined as per your filter conditions on how you want to search these documents in the first place, or the price change request in the first place. I'll go to one of these documents which has respective set of data. Right, and this is where you see a header which contains what is a template for this pricing. Now, this can be based on a global template, can be based on regional template, where you segregate what kind of SKUs can be maintained in terms of prices for India against export business, right? Likewise, you can bifurcate your pricing process in different templates as per your business requirements. I'll go into edit mode. Let's review, make a few changes and understand how it functions. Now, based on this template, you will be pre-populated with a set of sources. Of course, you can configure these as per your attributes, your characteristics for pricing. In this example, we're taking sales org, channel, material, customer, and others, whereas this can be, let's say, region, can be your grades, segments, anything which is part of your SAP attribute of customer, product, or all unit can be part of this, just how it is true for your condition tables. It follows similar sort of framework. Right, I'll go into the pricing grid, which is where we will review all the set of pricing condition types and tables in terms of your SAP access sequence that you would have defined for an existing condition type. Right, so here what you're looking at is a set of such what we call as price sheet, which is a combination of condition type and tables. Now, if you notice, we can maintain all different type of price components in one place. That gives you the ability to look at things together, maintain them together, and make decision based on the interrelation between these two components. Right. So in this example, let's say I have a freight as a price component, which is maintained at a sales stock channel and material level. Likewise, I have an upcharge maintained at the same level. If I go under all cost, this is basically accumulation of all my costs involved. It can be a cost of goods, it can be freight, upcharge, surcharges, or any other factor that you might have in your way of working. Right? Let's say if I envision a increase in logistic cost from next month, I can of course do a what if. I can do a mass change here in this case for all the rows or a few selected rows. For example, I'll do it for all. I can increase the freight by, let's say, a fixed percentage or a value, or set to a fixed value if required. Let's say increase by 10%, hypothetically, right? If I execute this, it will in turn update respective rows automatically. These are delivered functions. And we can, of course, define functions as per your updation rules. Now, with this change in freight, my total cost would also have gone up, right? If you notice, if I do a refresh of my derivations for those sources, I have a visibility of that increased cost. It can, of course, be automatic. I have made it on demand for the sake of our walkthrough. I can compare my total cost with the current set of parameters and what is the current maintained values for those records, right? Now that I have visibility of all my cost, if required, we can even have mechanism to import a respective set of competitor prices. Now, these can be used for your comparison of your price to your competitor price. If I go into list price, which is in this case a cost plus approach, is where we're looking at for all these materials, what is my current maintained price for this condition table and condition type. Now I'm doing this basis, let's say I have a visibility of total cost. I want to maintain this or simulate 3 different price strategy. In this case, margin, reverse MRP, as some people call it. Markup on cost in terms of percentage. So let's say before doing this, it might so happen I would modify these respective margin values. I can even do an update in mass saying using filters for all the records where my material group, for example, right? Let's say material group is, for example, wire rods. I would like to, sorry. Yeah, I would like to make this change and update the respective values for the margins to be, let's say, 25%, not 15%, which is defaulted for some reasons. Now I can make changes with these filters, right? Or I can work with the defined values, which are part of the organization policies. Now with these values, I can run pricing strategies. Here we define 5 or 6 of such. I can execute all of these to do a what if analysis to understand how my prices would be with respect to each of these strategies. And I can then carry out one of these forward for my comparison or simulation purpose. So for example, let's say if I see for some reason this value-based pricing is more optimal for me, I can carry that over in terms of my list price, right? And this is in turn carried over to my list price section, which can then be further used for my comparison simulations and so on. Right? So this is where we are seeing that while we have made the price change, there are automatic alerts which are being given to me in terms of my prices and my margins, right? So here we have set an alert which says if and when my list price is higher than competitor by a value or a percentage, give me an alert for those records, right? I can of course use this as an insight to make changes, or can be made to go forward for approval with the same set of prices. I can even put a comment saying, because of some market conditions, I would like to carry over this price and not make changes to this, even though there are alerts which are given up, right? And this can then be sent over to your approvers for their review at the same time to take an action. Now, if you notice here, along with my cost competitor prices, system even gives me recommendations for the set of products based on my defined rules and the set of conditions that I laid out for my optimization engine, right? At the same time, I have view of margin which are part of this price change. Of course, all of this can be further simulated. So I'll probably keep this open and go to a different tab to talk about the simulation function. Now, in terms of pricing, right, I'll open a price simulation document, which in turn helps us get a visibility of all things considered with a set of price change which is proposed and other conditions which are not part of my change in this case, right? So I can look at not just my prices but also set of rebates which are already existing, right, or which are also proposed for a same set of products, and an impact of all these things put together for my profitability. I can do that analysis before an approval is triggered for each of the changes, each of the price changes, right? Which is where you have visibility of all these things put together. And this can even be a condition for you to route approvals to respective departments, management, authorities, and so on, right? And this can be embedded to the same set of document without having you to go to different system, different mechanisms, right? Likewise, an approval can be triggered, as I mentioned, to respective teams. Can be a simple approval on the Fiori UI itself, or can even be done at an email. So for example, if there's a template which is set up for approval of prices, the approver can even approve offline by replying to the email with their set of actions, whether approve, reject, or being reviewed, for example. All this can be configured. And at the same time, they have a set of price changes which are already proposed, can be put into a PDF format for them to review it offline without having to switch between application systems if they are outside, if they are on the field, right? And once approved, this can in turn go and update respective SAP condition types in tables. This is equally true for sales and distribution, purchasing modules, because these are set of price conditions and can be automated. If there are some, let's say, some requirements to have it generated as a catalog or a list, system can create such PDFs or such files for you to export this to your customers or to your internal teams, for example. All right. With this as a point of view, I will go back to the presentation and continue from there with a perspective that we have covered a set of price management function, and we had looked at a set of gross to net view, which is setting up your gross prices, and set of discounts which are part of your on invoice or the orders, right, which concludes to the selling price, which is part of your actual invoices. On top of that, you might have certain, let's say, for example, off invoice payouts in terms of rebates, cash discounts, which we also manage with our other solution for incentives and commissions. All of this can be put together to conclude to a net price. And our approach, in general, depending on on the customer needs, is to help optimize this part of your business, because this is where your actual margins lie, right? And on top of you might have other costs, which are already part of your sales price determination, and this leads to your margins. Now we partner with you to help you optimize the margins, which is a factor of multiple such price components. Now to do that, there are multiple mechanisms. One is to do a cost plus to absorb all the cost and add markups to that to come to a price, or could also be to use the state-of-the-art facilities of ML algorithms with the help of your data and connect how a price change is linked to the change in volumes and what is the optimal price for a set of product or for a region or a combination of region and product, for example, right? And along with that, also deploy pricing principle, which are, if I simply put it out, saying higher the volume, higher the price in the same ratio, right? These can be put out as a business rules or a principle and can be recommended as a part of your list price determination or maintenance, right? We can even do simulations for, let's say, multiple scenarios, saying I want to get recommendation for prices considering increase in revenue by 5%, or keeping margin intact at 30%, whereas change in prices by a range of 2 to 3%. We can do such analysis. System can recommend a set of prices based on your data, based on your parameters, for you to take actions on those recommendations. That is true primarily for B2C business, whereas for B2B, it is more towards how you leverage your customers, what you call as WTP, willingness to pay for your set of product. Now, as you already know, different customers have different willingness to pay for the same product. And the idea to deploy these models is to optimize or tap on that potential revenue, which your customer sees for a same product. Right? If you see in this chart here, it depicts different customers have had different pricing or the prices and had different revenues for the same product. Whereas you can tap, if you have one size fit approach, you would have the same price for customers. Whereas if you tap on customers' willingness to pay, this can tap on additional revenue. And all these can be determined based on multiple parameters. With the help of segmentation, we can determine what is the bucket for that customer, what will when they fall into in terms of their size, the industry, their geography, their seasonality of business, for example. All these things we put together to conclude to a price range between a floor to ceiling price, with target price being the optimal price for your specific customer. And along with that, also embed the probability for that deal to be beneficial, to be effective, right? As a part of, let's say this is an example of a price request where we have also recommendations coming in from the system based on historical data or market data, which is, let's say, for example, Nielsen reports or others, if you have subscribed to those. At the same time, with a set of floor to ceiling price, it also recommends with the set of requested price or a proposed price, what is the likelihood of this deal being profitable or this deal being a win for you in that sense, with the set of recommended prices or the proposed prices, right? To recap, the idea is to help you move from or evaluate the options to move from a cost plus approach, considering all different factors which go into determination of your price, to a more guided approach, tapping on your customers' WTP for the same set of products. Now that can be across attributes, with the help of algorithms to determine the relation between change in one factor to your prices, and with the help of a few constraints. For example, for a specific, let's say, for example, a region where you cannot change price by more than a few percent because that might have a competitive disadvantage. All these constraints can also be put out for system to recommend that set of prices. And of course, once agreed, when approved, this can go and update respective SAP data points. Right? Now, Once we have looked at all these things put together, of course, you would also need a visibility of all these into an easy to consume fashion in terms of, let's say, dashboard reports, which are intuitive, and also to gather insights which are required for you to work on the next periods or the same period in terms of alignments. Right. So I'll quickly go into one of the dashboards which we want to run through in this session. Right. So here we have a pricing analytics dashboard. Let me just refresh. It might have logged out. So here we'll go into one of the tiles which talks about delivered content for pricing. And from there on, we'll see the set of reports which are delivered out of the box and can be mapped to your data as and how required. Right? Few of the key important factors which come in as a part of the report is to understand how you have grown over the years with the change of prices, and how these things put together has an impact in your margins, or how different customers have performed for the same period or for the same set of products, for example. Right? So I'll open the pricing analytics dashboard, and there you can even see gross net profitability or a waterfall of all pricing components put together at an overall level, or can drill down to respective, let's say, customers, products, regions, and any of the attributes which are part of your business. Right? What you see here is a typical viewpoint of impact of, or let's say, incremental margin compared to last year for all SKUs put together. Right? And the same in terms of margin percentage in terms of change comparing last to current period. Same in terms of volume and gross sales. You see a trend of that across the period in terms of margins, volumes, and gross sales. Now, one important point to consider or to evaluate is how you've grown from last year values to the current year values. It might so happen you might have made some price changes which enable you to jump or other fall depending on the moment, or the customer might have bought variants of products, or might have bought in higher volume compared to last year or the last period, right? Or your cost might have gone down, which is a bit contrary, but let's say that being a factor, your sales KPI, in this case margin, has grown because of these reasons primarily. Likewise, I can go into other factors. I can see which are my top N, which are top 5 customers growing and declining. Same in terms of products, which are my top 5 growing products I can focus more on, or declining where I can boost or run some promotions, for example. Right? Likewise, let's say I can do a gross unit view of all the things put together in terms of actuals, profitability view, mapping, or a scatter plot of my margins versus sales. It is not always true that high volume or high transactions are profitable, right? So you can compare your viewpoint of all customers in a scatter plot, comparing the sales to margin ratio. And again, these are all available for you to do that in a waterfall format, considering your gross sales, all of the off-invoice payouts, or your go-to-market program, which can be, let's say, rebates, cash discount, or all different rebate types put together, even commissions and cost of goods from your ledgers or material masters or finance, to determine true profitability for every product. Again, this is at an overall level. I can then filter it by a respective customer, product categories for me to understand profitability by each material and take action based on that. Now, one important point, I would say last point I want to highlight is, you see here across customer, you see having similar, let's say, gross sales value, but difference in the margins for the same customer. What we can also do is to compare profitability by customer in one place. Right? So let's say these two customers, I would like to compare their waterfall for all these components. Right? So I can go into filters, I can apply it for that specific customer. Right? Let's say between 497 and the one that we saw, the one was I think 29272. right? So I'm applying these two filters. I want to compare profitability by for all these components for these two customers in terms of their waterfall. Now this is on actual basis. I can see there is a big difference in the margin component, but I can even change this view from an extended to a percentage view, which means both of their gross sales being 100. What is the percentage of each of these goes into my or eats up my margin, right? And this can be factored for your comparison purpose. Now, if you notice for customer 497, you have a likely higher of invoice payouts, which eats up your margin to begin with. Now, the other factors, for example, HQ rebates, or you might have higher cost of supply for the product for that customer. You can visualize all these things into a waterfall format, take action based on these data points for your upcoming periods or ongoing period, depending on your state of operations, right? Now, with that view, I would just take one more minute. I'll talk about the set of analytics, which is part of the package, give you real-time dashboards to understand or consume that on demand or as a part of your document in a context to your customers. Give insights on respective upsell, cross-sell, or customer potential churn for a special period, and a set of recommendations for optimizing the prices, trade promotions, which are part of go-to-market programs, and even bids, right? This is an example of what we have already seen, but this is part of a configurable approach. This can be done differently as per your required setup for reporting. That's all from our side. Thank you for your time. I would open the floor for questions.
Thanks, Nikhil, for taking us through. A couple of questions to start with. Okay, so there is a question already on the chat. Can one simulate various pricing models, which is cost plus GP, percentage-based pricing, fixed pricing, etc., and activate the chosen model for SAP pricing condition dynamically? I think it's yes, right? That I think you shared.
Absolutely.
About that.
So in fact, an example we have covered. We had three factors. Two of them were based on percentage. Other one was based on a fixed value, and not just three. You can compare more than three. Let's say 5, 7, depending on your requirement. You can compare those many scenarios or models. It can be percentage based, fixed value based, or even based on your indices as a reference. Absolutely possible.
Okay. So the next question again on the chat is, how is the solution implemented? Is this an add-on package? Is it integrated with SAP ECC or S4HANA?
Right. There are multiple deployment options for our pricing solution. We have an option to deploy it. Of course, it works both on ECC and S4HANA equally in terms of function and features. It can be deployed embedded to your SAP landscape as an add-on, natively part of your SD and other modules, or can you be deployed as a sidecar if you would want to have a separate system for some reasons, in deployed on-premise or in cloud. All options are available.
So which leads to the next question in terms of, how is this licensed?
Right. This is licensed, of course, on SAP paper on revenue metric, and the details of that can be given by the SAP account executive.
Okay. And so the other question that I had was, is this solution also enables customers to identify the actual cost of sale for each by product category or by customer category as well?
Absolutely possible. So if you had, as part of the setup, we probably did not have that in place, but it can even be modeled to capture all the cost. It can be, let's say, cost of goods, logistics, your go-to-market cost, which are rebates, discount given off invoice periodically, or in certain cases, for example, in retail, you would have certain display events and so on, right? Those are part of your expenses for a vendor. All these can be put out as a cost model and analyze what is the cost to serve to a customer, to a region, for a channel, and so very well possible.
Okay. And what would be or what kind of organizations do you think will find your solution the most useful?
Right. I mean, see, the pricing is such a part of business, which is true for every industry and every organization in every sense, right? But organizations who have dynamic nature in terms of the prices, who tend to respond to market dynamics
Like
ahead
commodities,
of time.
maybe?
Commodities, absolutely. So we have customers in India who are part of, who operate in commodities and have deployed the solution for automatic price determination based on their set conditions or rules. And of course, not just commodity, but also, let's say, companies who have high volume of product or high volume of records being maintained in a periodic basis. Most companies change price on a monthly basis, given that the change in raw material cost and other things in current set of things. And those companies will find it very, very valuable for these things to be automated.
Interesting, because I remember before joining SAP, I used to work for Saint-Gobain Glass, and I was responsible for creating sales orders, and uh, I was responsible for sales for a particular area.
Mhm.
And one of the most difficult things for me to manage at that point in time was the sales, the pricing conditions. That was the most complex and the most important, as well as most
Right.
mistake prone area of order processing from that point of view, because there are just too many things to manually enter and remember. And
Right.
I'm assuming that what your solution
All
does is to kind of answer all of that,
right.
take away
It
all of
gives
that
you
hassles.
it gives you an ability to govern these changes, or the required set of evaluation for any change to hit a condition record, right? Because it is so sensitive that all these prices flow into your orders or delivery invoices. On the purchase side, it goes to your vendors, right? So it is absolutely required it to be correct at all times. And if it is, let's say, a post-dated change, right? You might want to have it simulated to understand, is it profitable for me to make this change, or it should be avoided in the first place. So yeah, in that sense.
There's another, yeah. There's another question on the chat.
Yeah,
Are there any analytics or KPIs to measure the sales impact due to change in pricing on various products to customer segments?
right. We kind of covered that as an example. Let me see if it is still open. Yeah. So here what you see is, in terms of the trend, we are also providing the viewpoint. Of course, this is modeled for the demo examples, but can be done differently for different business units within a company, or one size fit all for all BUs. Is visibility of the impact of that change uh, on your sales KPI. Now, I think we have filtered it to a customer, but let's see if I don't. And I see the impact of change in price to my change in sales KPI. It can be margin, sales value, as you asked for. Can be, let's say, even growth, for example. How did my change in price fuel my growth? Even that can be set up.
And so, do you also think that this is something that can be deployed at organizations which have hundreds of thousands of SKUs running
Absolutely.
within
So
their organization?
we have quite a few customers who deal in such volumes, and it is cumbersome manually to update the prices, even from an upload file, for example, right? We have that mechanism to import from a file, be it Excel, text, or so on, right? But even in that case, it becomes very cumbersome for an individual to evaluate all those records, roll into a price condition. And that part can be automated depending on your set of defined rules to simplify how you change price and impact that, update that to your condition records.
So you also talked about putting in play machine learning algorithms to kind of determine some of the what if analysis. Can you
Right.
just elaborate on that a little bit in terms of what exactly does that do, and how does that benefit an organization?
Right. So, I mean, in a typical B2B sense, in B2B environment, you are required, I mean, as a salesperson, we have seen from multiple customers that as a salesperson, you're required to provide a respective quotation for a product on the fly, right? For you to do that, you might want to also know what is the price for this same product. Even though I have a list price maintained, what is the price that my customer's peer is buying from me for the same product? I might not deal with every customer individually, right? So for me to understand that trend of or the value of the product for the industry of my customer, we would deploy algorithms to map that, if I can call it arithmetic operation, right? To map that change in the value or change in, let's say, the revenue for me by quoting the price to a customer based on historical data. Right? So let's say last 5-year data to determine the trend of your prices or how your customer perceive that product and map it to the recommendations in terms of a target price for a quote. And this equally holds true for a B2C segment. Let's say, for example, lubricants, right? This is very end consumer business. And in a specific, let's say, a city or a town, or let's say a region within a city, right? You might have different pricing for different regions for your dealers or your end customers. And how do you know that? It can be a seasonal factor. It can be, let's say, a factor of your cost involved to get to that place. All these things can be modeled as a part of the algorithms.
Interesting. And there is a whole set of customers that SAP has in industries where the prices are probably not as quickly changing for the end customers.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there are let's say in retail or in CPG organizations, the price is not that elastic from a sales point of view,
right.
But their input cost can vary significantly. Right. So
right.
the input of raw material cost can vary significantly. So how can your solution help those kind of customers? Do you have any examples of customers like that using your solution as well?
Absolutely. So one of our customers in US, a food service company, a renowned company for food service business, they do all of their costing, which is of course linked to the price determination, with the help of all the bill of material which goes into manufacturing the product. For example, a ketchup that consumes a set of tomatoes in a specific volume, right? And the cost of that with the labor cost, with other factors, go into the total cost calculation, right? And that is a factor to play on your price. You, of course, will not change price very often, but for you to understand margins for every transaction is also key. Not just in that CPG, even for automotive companies, right? You always have, for let's say an example of vendor who manufactures a set of components for you, right? And you have an agreed bill of material for manufacturing with the vendor. Now, for you to determine what is my purchase price for that bill of material, system can automate that process of calculation with your definition of that rule. So it is very significant that even though your price might not change, end customer price might not change, but your cost to manufacture or to serve, of course, changes very often. Now, visibility of that is also a key factor.
Thanks. So there is a question again on the chat.
Yeah.
So normally the willingness to pay is dependent on the competition pricing. Is there a way to determine optimum willingness to pay, considering if we feed historical data of pricing from competitors?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, we have mechanism to or a work area to manage your competitor history. And it is available to you as a service, as a consumption, or a manual feed that can be mapped to the customer WTP. For example, this most happens in a bid scenarios, tenders or bids, where you would know that this competitor has won that bid, and for a specific price range, you might not know the price, but this is a price in which they bought this. They won the tender, and this same factor can be used to determine your next quote to the same customer or a peer customer of your customer, peer company of your customer. Very, very well part of the framework.
That's nice. So maybe one last question. If someone wants to reach out to you and connect with your team, so how should they? I mean, of course, it is sold on SAP Paper as well, so they can directly reach out to their account management team as well. But if they want to reach out to you as Vistex, so what's the best way to reach out?
Absolutely so. So I mean, the first and foremost, you can reach out to us via website. You can put a log, put a contact detail, and our team will, of course, do due diligence to reach out to you as soon as possible. Or the second way could also be, or even the first way, to reach out to SAP account manager and request for a connect to one of us.
Yeah. So you also mentioned that there are other parts of your solution, right? So are they different solutions? Are all of these part of one single solution? So, for example, you spoke about commissions management and all of the other functionalities. Are they all part of one solution, or are they all different?
No, different solutions. It is bifurcated by the set of business process. For example, incentives, commissions, and rebates between a business partners can be customer, vendor, or brokers are part of one solution. Whereas, let's say, for example, chargebacks from your customers for a specific special price, or let's say, for example, contract pricing are different modules. I mean, it is not one package for all. Depending on your needs, this can be deployed differently.
Super. Thank you so much for taking time and talking to us, Nikhil. And let's just wait for a minute to see if there is any other question coming up on the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights. I will be posting this as a LinkedIn post once I'm back in office. And as you know, I'm down with COVID right now. So once I do that, feel free to kind of share it within your network as well. I will also be summarizing this and linking this recording to on an Indus blog. And we'll also be sending out a summary of the session, all the recorded sessions that we've done so far in this month to all Indus members shortly once I come back to office as well. So
thank you so much, Mukesh,
for
organizing
so much.
this. Wish you a speedy recovery.
Thank you. Take care.